Good afternoon. I'm Arlene Johnson, and I am so honored to be in this august company. Several years ago, after nearly 30 years of work-life research and consulting, I left work-life consulting and ran for local office to focus on local issues, to drive environmentalism in my community, and to start a citizens institute where civil and civic dialogue could take place. And so as I think about work-life legacy, I find that my perspective has changed quite naturally, and that I think today less about particular work-life issues and more about what it takes to sustain change in the long term, to sustain complicated change like making a sustainable community, or connecting all people effectively and meaningfully to workplaces. So I'd like to talk about three things that I found, in my experience, are important to help in the sustaining of a change agent effort. You won't find these things in change management textbooks, but I'll vouch for them from my personal experience. The first is have a community, because even if you're Ellen Galinsky, you can't do it alone. In politics, it's a party. And in work life, it's what I would like to call a community of commitment. The work-life journey has not been charted by 1 or 2 or even 20 very smart people. The progress has been created by this community of commitment. People across the nation and across the world, who for the most part know each other, talk to each other, share ideas, argue, and collaborate. And the community has been nurtured by events like this, by conferences, by councils, by roundtables. It's powerful because it's diverse. We've come to expect, and it's unusual, I think, in professional circles, we've come to expect that when we go to a work-life conference, we'll see people from corporations, government, media, child development, and even if they're competitors, they come together to collaborate, share ideas, and move their field forward. I first experienced the power of this community when I was part of the Work-Life Council initiated by Dana Friedman. There are people here who were part of that council, and you remember that we got together twice a year for 2 days to really dig into emerging work-life concerns. Many of the developments in the work-life field trace back to those conversations. In his book, The Tipping Point, Malcolm Gladwell, talking about change, makes the point that on that fateful night, 2 riders went out to warn the colonists about the British. But Paul Revere was the more successful one in getting the colonists' attention because he knew everybody. He was connected. Our community of commitment is the Paul Revere of work life, touching all aspects of our society and helping us to make change and sustaining us in the process. A second thing I've learned about sustaining long-term change is that we can't become too wedded to today's solution or today's language. In my early career, I was working with Felice Schwartz, the founder of Catalyst. We had just had a breakthrough on an idea about women's advancement. I was so enamored with the elegance of our solution that I wanted to hold it tight. But Felice, in her wisdom, said, "Arlene, let it go, move on. It's all about having a better idea tomorrow." Each breakthrough has for us in work life, no matter how hard fought it was, become a stepping stone to the next stage and to new insights. For example, in the 90s, we worked hard on creating an inventory of recommended work-life programs, only to confront the realization that programs without culture change are limited and of little effect. There are so many, perhaps dozens of examples of great ideas, new approaches that open up our discussion and then become the stepping stone for a better idea. That evolution is so creative and generative. Well, so what's my point? Am I saying we got to be open to new ideas, that long-term change is hard? Yes, but it's more than that. I've learned that to be effective change agents, whether in politics, where there's a lot of compromise, or in the work-life field, where there's always limited solutions, you have to celebrate and squeeze out all the possibilities of the best insights that you have today. And at the same time, have the humility to recognize that the work is not done and may never be. As with all important change movements, such as integrating a huge immigrant population into a New Jersey town, or addressing climate change, we are not going to have the satisfaction of saying, we did it, we nailed it, we're done. Now, that may sound like a duh to you, but it was a hard lesson for me. When I started working at Catalyst over 30 years ago, I wanted to make the world, the work world especially, a better place for my daughters and other women of her generation. And I really thought that with really hard work and a good business case, we should be able to nail it in, 25 years or so, and have all the policies in place, hardwired, baked into human resources, permanently done. Well, my daughters are well into their work lives. Their opportunities are better, but the work is not done, and that's okay, because the work-life task and our understanding of it is evolving in ways that we could not have originally imagined. We're on the trail of big questions. Questions about how diverse human beings, with all their feelings and values, can be effectively and meaningfully connected to an ever-changing world of work. There aren't final answers to those questions. Lastly, I've learned, and I recommend to you, that we have to deal more with the emotions of change. Years ago, I remember that Bob Johansen talked to a work-life conference about how stories were going to become more important as the world became more technological and impersonal, that stories would connect us at a human and emotional level. I happen to remember that conference was a long time ago, because at the same presentation he held up a little device and predicted that we would all be using it very soon, and that device was called a mouse. I should have learned the importance of telling stories and speaking to emotions in the work-life field, but it was actually local politics that embedded the lesson. Because people talk about issues, but they vote emotions. They're comfortable with their biases until they actually have a relationship with someone who defies that bias. Relationships, emotions. Some of you will find it odd for me to be talking about storytelling and emotions, because I put so much emphasis in my career on analysis and building the business case, and that was good work and it was important. The rational argument opens the conversation, but it's the stories that change people's minds. We all know about the CEO who is against flexibility until he sees the work-life stress of his daughter. Today, I'd spend more time collecting stories. Stories not just of workers' stress and difficulties, but stories of the human spirit at work, of managers who changed their minds, of things that worked and didn't. There wouldn't need to be a moral to every story. Just stories that illuminate the beautiful and sometimes frayed thread that connects human beings to their work and to the things they care about. In summary, sustaining our change effort depends on continuing to nurture our community, continuing to refine our thinking, and it requires that we move forward both to the reason and the emotional wellsprings of social change, all the while holding up and celebrating the humanness in all work.